Hi, welcome to your initial training for the Cutco Events program. I'm Ian Connors, the Divisional Events Coordinator. First, I want to congratulate you on reaching $10,000 in career sales and becoming eligible for this training. That achievement puts you in the top 1% of all sales reps in Vector, and that's a very impressive achievement. Now you get to learn about our largest professional sales program, where you get to take the foundational skills you've learned already and take those to the next level. So today we're going to cover several things. We're going to go over what the events program is, the benefits of being in the events program, the mechanics of how the program works, some of the costs and admin structures that we have in place, our culture, policies, and expectations as a team, as well as the next steps required for you to eventually join the events program. Lastly, we'll go over the sales approaches that we use during the events program. They're similar to what you're already using, but they're a little more advanced and there's more to them. So let's get started. So, what is the events program? Vector has about a half a dozen different ways that it sells Cutco. One of those ways is the college student program, which you started in and are still working in right now. One of those other ways is through the events program, where essentially we go to any event where there are lots of people and we set up a display and we sell Cutco to the people at that event. Some of the other ways Cutco is also sold, for example, is through our roadshow that goes through Costco and does displays there, through our military program where Cutco is sold through displays on military bases, our business gift program where Cutco is sold to businesses as engraved business gifts, and our realtor program, which is similar to the business gift program as well. So what makes the events program different from what you're already doing? Well, the biggest difference is you're not going into customer homes. Instead, in one sense, they are coming to you, or rather you're going to the event and meeting them there. But you're not seeing necessarily just one customer at a time. It's similar in that Cutco is still Cutco. The sales approach, the reasons that people buy Cutco are still very similar. The basics are similar, the pricing is similar as well. How it's different, for one, it's faster paced. When you're sitting in home with someone on an appointment, they can't go anywhere because they're already home. So you can kind of take as long as you need to. When you're at an event, if people get bored or they're not interested or you're not properly handling an objection, they can just walk away and leave. And so if you're not actively engaging them and captivating them, they just leave. And so it's a much faster paced sales environment. That's the biggest difference. It's also different in that there can be more risk. I'll go into this later more, but we pay for our events. So we pay for the right to be there, which means if we don't have a good event and we don't sell a lot, we didn't just not make money, but we also potentially lost money. And so the stakes are higher. Now the opportunity can also be higher, but that comes with more risk. So to give you an idea about some averages for the events program, an average event is about 2 days. Typically it's a weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Events can be as little as a few hours long on one day. They can be as long as 2 to 3 weeks. For example, like our mall kiosk program during the holidays or our state and county fairs that we work. The average representative at an event typically will sell $3,000 to $4,000 over the course of 2 days and typically get anywhere from 5 to 15 to 20 service call leads. Now, some events don't do as well, some events do much better. That, of course, depends a lot on the person working it, as much as, if not more so, than the quality of the event itself, which is part of why we spend so much time training, which we'll talk about more. The biggest difference with events is that although the opportunity is bigger, the standards are higher as well. And so while you'll get to work with more directly a lot of the top salespeople in the company on the events program, your standards will also have to raise in order to ensure your success. Think of it as graduate school Cutco. You're now playing in the big leagues. There are a lot of benefits with working in the events program. For one, you're able to build a customer base very quickly adding as many as 400 to 500 customers a year to your customer list. You're able to generate warm leads for service calls, meaning people are excited and looking forward to receiving your phone call to schedule an appointment with them. You're also able to learn and spend time one-on-one with some of the best representatives in the company. You're able to gain new experiences in a new type of sales environment, and you're able to learn to do a faster demo. The average demo for a new customer at an event takes 5 to 10 minutes, but sometimes we do it in as little as 30 seconds. And so those skills will also transfer to your in-home demos and massively shorten the amount of time that your in-home demos are taking. It will help you to learn to differentiate what is actually important to the sales process versus what is just fluff and really can be eliminated. Some other benefits for the program include more money for management savings, a slightly different schedule since most events happen on the weekends. And so for many representatives still in college, working the events program is more feasible and easier for them to do so that they can focus on school during the week and focus on selling during the weekends. You'll also have the potential to generate even bigger results on any given single day. The most that you might be able to generate on an in-home demo program, most you might be able to do is see 6 to 7 people in a day, maybe 8 or 9 if you really aggressively schedule the day. And those people you might be able to sell a few thousand to. At an event, a very busy qualified event, you might be talking to 20, 30, 40 or more people in a day. And so the opportunity to sell more is greater. You'll also get better sales skills to be able to train your future reps should you choose to run a branch or a district office in the future. You'll gain the opportunity for advancement within the events program as well to some of our leadership positions. And finally, you'll be able to very quickly build product conviction. Through all of the customers in any given day, you'll have 10 to 20 or more customers that have had Cutco for decades coming up to tell you how much they love the products. So as far as the mechanics of how events work, the coordinator will choose to book an event. When that happens, they send the information to the factory in Olean. The factory then pays for the event up front. So that way we don't have to worry about fronting the money for it. Once we work the event, the coordinator then submits a chargeback form telling Olean which representatives to charge the cost of the event to and how many weeks to split it up over, so that you don't have to pay for the event until after you've worked it and are paid on the orders that you get from the event. When we go to an event, we take a fairly large product display with us. In addition, we also take folding tables, tablecloths, many times a backdrop, and other signage to make sure people know who we are and what we're doing there. That setup can be fairly expensive for someone to acquire. So for newer representatives, the division owns several setups that we will rent to you on a per day basis when you start to work events. Eventually, you will reach a point when it makes sense to buy your own kit, when it becomes more cost effective, and that's something the coordinator will talk to you about when that time comes. In the meantime, you would simply pick up one of our kits, rent it for the day, set it all up, use it, tear it all down at the end of the event, and put it back where our events kits are stored. At this point, you're probably wondering about some of these costs that I have mentioned. There are several costs for the program. The biggest one by far is the cost of being at an event. That range is a pretty big one. It can be as low as free for some of our very small events. It can go up to several $1,000s for some of our bigger events. And it varies a whole lot in between. Typically, people are paying about $50 to $200 a day to be at an event. Now, of course, that means all you have to do to pay for the event is sell a couple of knives, and then everything else after that is bonus. And we'll talk more about mentality, but you always want to be thinking about not just paying for your event, but making money at the event, even though you will also make a lot of money on the service call follow-up, even if you don't profit directly on the day of the event. The next costs are the team and the booth fees. So there is a small fee that helps with the functioning of the team. That is a per day fee that's charged just per day, per event day that you work. And then if you rent a booth, you also pay a small fee to either the division if you rent a divisional booth, or if you use someone else's booth, you pay them a small booth rental fee. If you use your own booth and other people come in and work that event with you, they would then pay you a booth rental fee. The amounts change periodically. That's something that you'll find in the documentation you get and something that you'll receive at the end of this training. But it's typically $10 to $15 a day per fee. It's not a whole lot. The only other cost that sometimes is associated with events are just anecdotal things, having cutting food if you want to cut food up, having snacks, having paper towels to clean things. But those are things that you would have on a normal demo anyway. So those are really no different from what you're already doing. So next we're going to talk about the culture, policies, and expectations of the team. This will be a little bit of a bigger section here. The primary policy, culture, and expectation that we have on our team is the concept of abundance. That is to say, we want to come from a place of abundance and be making decisions and be having all of our interactions with each other on the team from a place of abundance rather than a place of scarcity. It can be easy sometimes when you've been at an event all day and you're tired and maybe you haven't talked to a customer in a while and you're a little demotivated. It can be very easy to start feeling like, I'm not sure if there's enough for me. The reality is, we sell millions and millions of dollars at events all over the country. We work over 6,000 events a year as a company. Just in this area alone, for the past 5 years, we've worked over 50 events a year on average. There are millions and millions of people in this territory and hundreds of events at which to go find those people to sell Cutco to. And we know that when our representatives are focused on that and how exciting the opportunity is, not only do they feel better, but they sell more, which of course is a win for everyone. This also applies to how we interact with each other. Our abundance first policy means that whenever you're talking to someone about something related to the events team, we always assume that they have the best intentions in mind and they are also coming from an abundant place. We also recognize that unlike the in-home demo program, this really is a team and it takes the whole team to make the program work. Some of our bigger events require extensive setup preparations and planning and require chipping in from the whole team. And there will come a time when you just are asked to take one for the team. And everyone has had to do it at some point, and if you haven't yet, you will soon. And we ask everyone to recognize that we put the team first here. That also means that you're going to have a lot of support in a way that you don't have from the in-home demo program. You're going to get to spend days working with other team members as well, which can be a whole lot more fun. And so it's something that we really take pride in. Another policy we have is professionalism and timeliness. And this is really important because when you're doing an in-home demo, you're only seeing one person at a time. So if you do something that really puts them off or you're not prepared, you're really only affecting one person's image or idea of Cutco. But if you show up to an event and you're not having a great day and that's showing, or you're being rude, or you're not prepared, or you look not put together, there could potentially be thousands of people just in one day that walk by that Cutco booth. Even if they don't stop, they're still seeing our booth and they are seeing how you look and they are forming their opinion of Cutco based on you. So it becomes vastly more important to make sure that we look the part of a multi-million-dollar company. And so our standards of professionalism include things like being on time, things like not showing up to the booth tired, exhausted, hungover, under the influence of anything. It includes being there not just on time, but early to make sure that you have time to get ready and get prepared. It includes dressing properly for events. Professionalism also means follow-up after the event. When someone requests sharpening at an event, we have a 100% follow-up policy, which means even if for some reason you cannot get out to see them to sharpen their products, you must give that lead to someone else who can. And if no one can get to them, you must let them know that no one can get to them so that they are followed up with. The last thing anyone wants to deal with is to be at an event, be right about to close someone on a set, and then someone comes up and says, I signed up for sharpening here last year and nobody ever called me. That's the worst thing to have to deal with as a representative at an event. And because of this policy, if that does happen, we can confidently say, I'm so sorry that happened. We have a policy of following up with everyone who requests that. So I don't know what happened. I'm not sure why, but let's make sure we can get you taken care of. And if we're not actually doing that, then we can't say that with integrity. So professionalism in that respect is very important. Timeliness is also important as well. There are some events where if we show up late or we try and leave early, the promoter will not only kick us out of the event for the rest of the event, but they won't let us back in. And so your mistake of being late or your decision to leave early not only affects you in that moment, but it affects the opportunity for the events program for everyone in the years forward who might potentially be able to work that event but would miss out on it. And so things like leaving early generally are never allowed unless there's specific permission given by the promoter. Although I'm not really sure why you'd want to leave early anyway if you're there to sell. Another important policy on our team is honesty. Everyone's going to make a mistake at some point, and that's fine. And our team leadership is never going to be mad at someone for making a mistake as long as they own it and are willing to learn from it. However, if someone is hiding the fact that they made a mistake and lying about it, or if they're just, even if it wasn't a mistake, but they're just lying, that is grounds for immediate dismissal from the team. Not only from the standpoint of professionalism, but also from the standpoint of trust with each other on the team. Many of our policies only work because we fully trust each other as a team. And if we don't have that trust, the team ceases to function the way it was intended. Another important policy we have on our team is rep of record. Many of our more experienced representatives who have been around for years have generated customer bases of thousands of customers, and they've spent a lot of money and worked very hard to market to those customers. And they can't be at every event. And so it will happen sometimes where someone else's customer who is active on the events team, their customer comes up and sees you at an event and wants to buy something. So to honor the investment that people on the team have made in marketing to people, because sometimes people just don't realize that we do work on commission, or sometimes people know that but they're in a hurry and they see Cutco there and it's just an impulse purchase and they just decide, I just want to get it here. We still want to honor the investment people made. So any customer that you work with that already has Cutco, one of the first things in the approach you must do is ask if they have a rep that they work with already. And if you and they working together can identify the representative, for example, if they say, oh, the poodle lady with the curly hair, well, we all know that's probably Evelyn on the team. So if we can identify the representative they work with, you will work with them as normal. And when you write up an order for them, that order you will give to the representative that they normally work with. In exchange for your time, that representative will pay you a kickback for writing up that order of between 5 and 15%, depending on how much time you spent with them and how big the order is and how much you worked for the order. When you're new, you'll probably spend a fair amount of time writing up orders for other people. Most people don't mind this because they know that as they build their customer base, eventually it starts coming back around, and you will be able to have people write up orders for you the longer you stick around. Our last major policy that I'm going to cover today is personal responsibility. Now, our leadership team is going to provide you all the resources you need to be successful. However, we're not going to be able to hold your hand all the time. And when you sign up for an event, you essentially are taking full responsibility for that event. We do our best to be available if you do have a question or something comes up, but there may be times when you just have to make a decision yourself. And so, because you couldn't reach a leadership team person is never an excuse for having not shown up to an event or having left early or having done something else that could jeopardize the events program as a whole. And we want you to think of it as your own event anyway. The more you take responsibility for your success at the event, generally, the better success you're going to have. So those are all of the major policies that I'm going to cover here. There are other policies as well, that you should read through. Our policies document is available in our Team Google Drive folder, which you will get access to at the end of this training. The document is a little long and it is a little boring, but it's very important that you read through the entire document at least once so that you're familiar with our policies, and so that if you have any questions on a policy, you can make sure to ask me or another leadership team member as soon as possible. So you've had an overview of how the events program works. The next steps in order for you to make it onto the events team are as follows. First, you need to have sold $10,000 in personal sales to be able to start your training, which if you're watching this video, I'm presuming you've already done. Again, congratulations. Next, you'll need to complete your demo kit. So that means having at least one of every knife in the ultimate set, as well as having gadgets and at least one or two of the sporting knives as well to be able to put out on display. There are multiple ways to do this. The best way I recommend is through a contest with your manager. Next, you'll have to be added to our Team Google Drive and Team Calendar. Your manager will help you take care of that at the end of this training video here. Our Team Google Drive contains all of our documents for things like how to book an event if you find that you want to work, our policies document, and many other things, as well as price lists and some of our special sheets that we use. Our Team Calendar is what we use for all of our team events. So that's where you can find information on what events are available to work, what events are available to field train, event meetings, and any other events related calendar items. You'll also have to complete your service call training. You'll have to be at $15,000 in career sales to complete your company service call training. You'll also have to learn your approaches and pass a test on them, demonstrating your competency before you'll be allowed to work events. And last but not least, you'll want to complete at least 2 days of field training at an event so that you can watch what happens and see what it's really like. Finally, the last requirement is you must reach $20,000 in career sales before you can start working your own events. We do this for a couple of reasons. One is related to profitability. At 20%, you're at a higher commission level, which makes it easier to be profitable. The other reason is experience. Like I mentioned, events have some risk associated with them, and we want to make sure that you're experienced enough to be able to maximize the event when you go. Next, you're going to take a look at the event's approaches. One is going to be fairly similar. It'll look very much like what you do on an in-home demo. We call that the new customer approach. There are essentially two types of people that you're going to work with at an event. People come up to the booth and they either have Cutco already or they don't. So the new customer approach is what you'll use if someone doesn't have Cutco. The previous owner approach is the approach you'll use if they do have Cutco. And so the first thing you'll do when someone walks up, after greeting them of course, is just asking, do you have Cutco? And whatever they tell you will let you know which one of these approaches to use. The previous owner approach might be a little more unfamiliar to you. Just like for a new customer, rather than selling them a couple pieces, we want to sell them a package or a set of knives. With current owners, we want to do the same thing. We don't just want to sell them a couple of more knives, we want to sell them a package. And the package we typically sell is called an upgrade. And the idea is that we're going to get them a package of knives that complete a larger set, and they essentially just fill in the rest of the pieces they're already missing. Now, this isn't an official package per se from Cutco, but the reality is, as a sales representative, you can do whatever you want. So if you call it a package, it is a package. So at this point, your manager is going to give you some time to go over these approaches and get familiar with them. After this training, you're going to have a call with me or another leadership team member where we can talk about the approaches, answer any questions you have on them, and make sure that you're getting comfortable using them. At this point, your manager is going to review some of what we covered through a PowerPoint. And then at the end, he's going to get your information and set up a phone call with either myself or another leadership team member to answer any questions you have about the program and help get you set up on the next steps. Your manager is also going to pull up the events program calendar and help you schedule your next 2 days, your 2 days of field training as soon as possible so that you can see what an event really is like. So you now have all of the basics of the events program. I look forward to speaking with you soon.